Welcome back. Well, the billionaires are out to play at this time, and one is the chairman of FBN Holdings, Sir Otedola, raising the stakes right there with FBNH, and we have Will with the details at this time. Will, I don't know if you're a billionaire, but I know billionaires are playing right now.
Yes. Oh, we are also actually playing in that circle right now. That space is really hot, laddie. You need to join it. Right. We saw Femi Otedola, that's the chairman of FBN Holdings, increasing his stake in that company by about 2.2% yesterday to bring it to about 11.63%. And gradually taking on that, those numbers are really growing
about
there.
11%.
That's about 11%, 11.63%. And this is just 4 days from when he started on Thursday to acquire more. Right now, I think his share stands about, say, 4.17 billion.
Wow.
That's what we have for out of the outstanding 32 billion. FBN has out there.
I guess this is the moment I say, God, when?
God, when? But let's have a quick take. Let's talk to an analyst who's going to give us a quick insight there. Let's talk to Mukhtar. Mukhtar is standing by virtually. Mukhtar is the CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. Mukhtar, let's get your quick take on this. I know you're very busy, but thank you for making out time to talk to us about this. Femi Otedola, the serial investor, is increasing his stakes in FBN Holdings. And on Thursday, we saw him buying over 863 million shares. And yesterday, he increased his stake by an additional $797 million. It now holds a combined value, as I was talking to Ladi, about 4.17 billion shares of the company's total outstanding shares of 35.89 billion. How big is Otedola's ambition here?
Well, Femi Otedola is one of the most ambitious investors, and you've seen that with some of the companies like Geregu and others. So what we've seen for the past 3 years, he has invested over 100 billion into FBN, and so now he's not the largest shareholder. What investors are actually looking towards is being among, like you say, being among the billionaire. It's time for most sure investors who want to join that wagon. That is one. Then secondly, if Femi Otedola buying into FBN, we give him the kind of leverage they've always wanted that bank to be. Remember, that's one of the oldest banks in Nigeria. And so that also will happen. And then if you look at his track record, what he has done with other companies like Geregu and others, a lot of investors are excited if they are part of FBN Holding, and those that are not part are looking forward to be part of it. But one thing that you expect from a Femi Otedola having a stake in FBN Holding is, one, you expect good dividend payout henceforth, and then price stability, because he is the largest shareholder. Rather than selling, he will want to buy more to take his stake and to let people know that he believes in the brand of FBN Holding. So for any investors, shrewd investors, you're looking for good dividend payout and price stability, FBN Holding is the share to be in now.
Thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Mukhtar, for sharing that. I know you're very busy. We're just going to let you go now, but investors do need to know what to expect from this increment and what Otedola is about to do or change the market. Probably is going to be a game changer. We'll watch and see. Thank you so much, Mukhtar, for your insights. Now let's continue with the market equities in Africa, where we see sentiments were mostly negative at intraday. Nigeria's NGX was down at intraday by about 0.44%. We've not lost the 99,000 level yet. And sentiment report from yesterday showed 40% buy interest and 60% sell-off. That's not so good. South Africa's JSE was also in the red at intraday, 0.4%. And meanwhile, we see Egypt's EGX 30 was up at intraday. That's the number, nearly 1% there. And you see Kenya closing Monday's session in the red. But let's away from the equities market now. Let's check in on the fixed income space, and let's bring in Chuka Nwachukwu, who is the Group Head, Asset and Liability Management, UBA. Chuka, it's good to have you on the program again. Chuka, we just want to know what happened on Monday. The bond auction that ought to have happened June the 16th, but because of the Salah break, we did see that rescheduling, and now we have 450 billion was on offer, but we saw less than what they were able to raise, less than what they wanted. They got about 297 billion naira. That's 66% of the target of 450 billion. Are we beginning to see a tapering in demand in that space? And what do you think is responsible for this?
Thank you. Like you rightly mentioned, 450 was on offer. About 297 billion was sold. Subscription was about 307 billion. So what we've seen so far is that over the past 2 quarters, we've seen elevated yield. This is because of activities on the CBN trying to encourage investors to come in. So we've seen the OMO, for example, 1 year OMO, effective rate at 22.5%. And so, investors obviously will demand for higher yield, and that's also has also filtered into some of the traders' sentiment. When you have elevated yield, for example, and there's no outlet, they become expensive to keep some of these securities. However, for banks, looking for long-term investment as well as looking to hold position, I think yield around 21%, 22% for bond securities is a good yield to keep, especially when we know that towards the end of the year, we see a reduction in yield, probably around maybe like 15, 16%.
We'll definitely keep our eye on that, Chuka. But what is liquidity like in the market? So we know it opened Monday in a credit of about 951 billion naira. Are we seeing similar levels today?
Yeah, it's just a little shy of the opening of yesterday. Today is currently around 930 billion. Though there will be, of course, yesterday's bond auction settlement is tomorrow, and so we expect to see a little below 300 billion lead the market. Tomorrow again there will be NTB auction about 223 billion will be on offer. Thursday would be settlement date, and so we expect some of this liquidity to to reduce. However, we do not see any major outflow, other than these two settlements I've just mentioned. But so we expect to see between now and end of the week, system liquidity still, very positive.
Okay, so speaking of that now, we still have that credit you mentioned, barring the auctions settlements for tomorrow, starting tomorrow. What instruments are investors trading, and at what end of the yield curve, and what interest rates are we seeing here based on the liquidity that we talked about?
Yeah, so with the elevated liquidity in the market, we expect to see bullish sentiment. And so interesting securities, especially on the T-bill side, we see players, playing on the shorter end of the curve, which is the 182 days, especially just the last auction. We've seen it a bit bullish. On the longer end of the curve, which is the bond side, we also see, interest on the 2033 as well as the 2029 bond that had just been on offer. So these are the two securities on the bond side that are quite attractive. For the T-bills, like I mentioned earlier, we see 182 days interest, and then some also cherry picking on the 1 year bills as well.
Thank you so much, Chuka Nwachukwu, Group Head, Asset and Liability Management, UBS. Always good to have you on the program. So we'll move on now to other markets. We'll move into the Middle East now, where the Gulf equities were trading mixed. At intraday, we see Abu Dhabi down 0.28%. Dubai also following in that stead, 0.14% down. Still within the region, Saudi, that's a Tadawul, is up 0.24%. And the Qatari index is also up 0.69% and is extending its rally to a 16th session. And this is lifted by gains in sectors such as the energy, materials, and finance sectors. Now let's just scoot over quickly to the U.S., where stock futures rose in early trade today. But we see the Dow Jones tapering there. And this comes after chip maker NVIDIA and other tech stocks brought the NASDAQ to its worst day since April. Now, futures tied to the Dow Jones was down 0.11%. We see the S&P 500 also, not also, but up 0.15% in early trade, and NASDAQ futures was also up 0.41%. Now, NVIDIA, just speaking about that, sank nearly 7% on Monday, building on that 4% decline from last week, and the stock is entered a correction territory now. We've seen that slump raising about $430 billion. Other connected semiconductor and artificial intelligence names also fell, with Super Microcomputer also dropping 8.7%. We see Qualcomm shedding 5.5%. We're seeing Broadcom also declining nearly 4%. Information technology was the worst performing sector in the broad index. And as a result, you see that index was dropped by 2.1%. Now let's go to the Asian markets. Now we see Japan Nikkei 225 closing up 0.95%. That's nearly 1% up, back to 39,000 level there. And looking at data from that country, we see the services provider price index for Japan climbed 2.5% year on year in May. Now South Korea's Kospi was also up 0.35%, and we see the Hang Seng in China up 0.25%. But look at China. Let's look at mainland China. It's down 0.44%. And while other major equities in the markets in that region rose, the index dropped by this amount. And we've seen this coming as reports, following the market there. We see that flip reaction with the Hang Seng and the Shanghai index, and because of the reports that the Biden administration is probing the 3 Chinese companies in that, and they're worrying if Beijing will be able to access the American data there. So a lot of things going on in that Asian space right now. We see the Australian markets up 1.36%. That is, it's just so much interesting stuff going on with China and with the EU and the US right now that tussle with the tax on, chips.
All the tariffs right there. And another question I have in my head right now, I know Davido is getting married today. How's that going to impact Nigeria's market today? Who knows?
You could have been looking at how it's going to impact Davido.
All right, we'll get to check it out. Thank you so much, Will, for the details there for most of the markets.